Welcome everyone to the Week 15 FantasyCruncher wide receiver preview here on the YouTube page. If you haven't already subscribed to our channel, please subscribe to our channel. Please like the video and leave in the comments section your FantasyCruncher username and the wide receiver you think scores the most points this week on the main slate to enter in a chance to win a free week of FantasyCruncher Pro. Again, a free week of FantasyCruncher Pro. I'll announce the winner on the quarterbacks video. That comes out on either Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on the number of injuries we've got during the week. And with no Thursday game next week, let's say it's going to be Wednesday. Safe bet. All right, we've got a ton of wide receivers to get to. And this is a position that I promised you guys that I'd help you save some money. You know, I really like those expensive running backs. And I said we've got plenty of cheap receivers. So I'm just going to start in the cheap tier. Michael Gallup against the Rams, 5,700 is a fantastic option. Picked up 10 targets last week, 10, 6, 6, 13, 10. Some of those were tough matchups in there, and those good matchups, 10-plus targets in each of the three last good matchups here. Back being healthy, back being a big part against this Rams secondary. I think it's going to be a pretty good spot for them. Tyler Boyd against New England is probably the one I'm going to pass on. Sterling Shepard against Miami. We saw Darius Slayton have those long passes, but for the shorter stuff, was mostly Shepard. He's a fantastic option. That Philly secondary, we saw what Eli Manning could do down the football field. No reason why Dwayne Haskins and Terry McLaurin can't do that themselves. 5,300, pretty cheap price. Russell Gage, no Calvin Ridley, moves up to the number 2 receiver, only 5,000. Allen Hurns, Devontae Parker, questionable. Still no Preston Williams. Been getting a lot of work recently. Got 8 targets, 4 targets, 7 targets, 6 targets over those last 4 games. This is a good matchup against that Giants secondary in some, you never know whether, but still, I think it's a good matchup. Darius Slayton against the Dolphins. We just talked about what his ceiling is. We saw it last week. Can't count on 2 touchdowns every week, but again, that Miami secondary has been getting burned deep. You could easily see those pass plays happen again. Brashad Perriman against Detroit. No Mike Evans in this game. Perriman had a season high 6 and 5 targets over his last 2 games. He's still super cheap against that really bad Lions secondary. Randall Cobb, if you want to go with the slot guy versus the Rams. Danny Amendola. Marvin Jones is out for the season. He's only 4,100. Reception guy, high volume against Tampa. We've seen the targets 8 in each of those last 2 games. Could see that even go higher against this Tampa defense. We move on to the next page. There's just so many guys. Isaiah Ford for the Dolphins. Picked up 9 targets last week against the Jets. You know, so you got to see the status on Albert Wilson and Devontae Parker, but if they're out, he's only 3,700 against that bad secondary. I mean, there's probably more. Just definitely got to be another Lions receiver that's in play too. Let's see who the hell even the Lions have at wide receiver. Chris Lacey? That's really all we got? I mean, Chris Lacey's probably going to be an option. No, he's not even available. There's got to be more wide receivers on this team. Right? There has to be. Kenny Galladay, Danny Amendola. There's got to be more wide receivers than this. I mean, it's possible that literally the wide receivers are brand new. They might not have anyone else, but let's find out for sure. Travis Fulgham. I got to be honest, I have no idea who that is. So they have 4 wide receivers on the active roster. So, I mean, you could look at their pass-catching backs. J.D. McKissick could be having a nice bigger role this week as well. Travis Fulgham. I got to admit, never heard of him. And Chris Lacey apparently was a waiver picker from New England. Got to be honest. I don't know who that is. He was active in Week 14. I mean, that's good to know. But I got to be honest, never heard of him. But, hey, if he starts 3K against that bad Tampa secondary, baby, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, there are a ton of options, including guys that you or I had never even heard of until this week. That's the name of the game, Week 15 DFS. That's why I was so confident just being like, pay up for those elite backs. Like, Kevin Harmon's an option against that bad Philly secondary. Traquan Smith has been drawing a bigger and bigger role. A guy I really liked heading the season. The injuries just really killed him. But, you know, the Saints' playoff positioning starting to get locked. They might get him going for the playoffs. I mean, let's see. Isabella's hurt too? You gotta be kidding me. Just like I have a season-long team where I'm not even sure I can start a full active roster. That's how bad that team is getting. But I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like there are just so many guys, and I'm sure I didn't even get to all of them. My point being, right? There's so many cheap receivers this week, so don't feel like you have to pay up for the top guys. Now there's some good plays up here for sure. Kenny Galladay's a fantastic play. Tyreek Hill, Chris Godwin, Michael Thomas at home. You know, Michael Thomas at home, 34, 30. 31, 30, 44. He had that depressing 19 in 1 week, but he's only 8,700. So again, you can definitely lock him in if you want to pay down a bunch of receivers and pay up at 1. Zach Pascal's an option. I didn't even mention him. Keenan Allen, a guy we talked about last week, is only 6,300. Robert Woods, only 6,200. Cooper Kupp's been running less and less routes each week. So again, there's just so much upside in this 6,500 and below tier. You know, if you don't want to pay up at this upper tier, you don't have to. There are a ton of fantastic options this week. This is one of the more pass-heavy weeks I can think in a while. And again, a lot of that's due to not being played in these cold weather climates. As I mentioned in the quarterback video, we're really just looking at Cincinnati, Green Bay, and Washington as kind of those poor weather games. Everything else is pretty damn good for December. 46s, 45s, 50s, 49s. A lot of high totals there. Jarvis Landry's only 6,700 going up against that Arizona secondary that everyone's crushed. So again, there are just fantastic options. And if he can't go, I mean, he's expected to go, but if he can't go, you know, Rashad Higgins is an option. Odell Beckham, you know, might not go. So again, there's just so many cheap options this week. Inevitably, someone's going to miss, and that's going to provide us a huge opportunity at wide receiver to pay down to get those stud running backs in. All right, so I talked a lot about the options, and there's a ton of them. Oh, I didn't even talk about Chris Conley against the Raiders. He's a good value option. That being said, gotta like some more than others, right? Can't play everyone. The favorite of these options for me is probably Danny Amendola. That Tampa secondary is really bad. Danny Amendola is going to run those short intermediate routes. David Blah, you know, he's still a young quarterback, third stringer, just, you know, 1.5 games, 2 games of NFL experience. Check down Charlie still probably would apply here. So Danny Amendola, I think, is a guy that can win some battles. I really do like 5,700 Michael Gallup. I think he's probably my second favorite option down here. Isaiah Ford is probably my third option, but you really do have to check the status on Devontae Parker and Albert Wilson. If one of those guys is back, I do like them. The Tampa Bay cheap receivers, I like Justin Watson the most of the cheapies, other than Brashad Perriman, but he got 8 targets. Although Scotty Miller's back, this workload could get tampered down a little bit, but it's against that Detroit secondary. Again, anytime I see 2 secondaries that just can't play defense against each other, I just love that spot. So I think Justin Watson, Isaiah Ford is definitely in my top 5. If you're paying up a little bit, Kenny Galladay is just hard to ignore against that Tampa secondary. He's just so good. Like, he's just going to have to get targets. So he's probably my number 4. And then my number 5, I'll go with... so many good options, it's hard. I'll go with Russell Gage. That San Fran defense is just getting defensive injuries through. They had another 5 this week. So I think that people are just going to overrate that San Fran defense based on its season-long totals. And right now, it's a shell of that defense. They're just trying to get through the regular season and get healthy for the playoffs. So I think Gage could have a big role. I think we can see close to those 9 or 10 targets he saw when Julio was out, now with Ridley out. So that's the wide receiver preview. I mean, there are so many guys I could have even mentioned I didn't mention. There are just, wide receivers loaded this week. If you find a guy that you like, I would just play him, because I think this ownership of wide receiver is going to be some of the most spread out it's been in a long time, because there's probably 40 or 50 options you can play. Roster construction can go in a lot of different ways. You could pay down at running back and pay up. You could pay down at wide receiver and pay up at running back. I think it's going to be a fantastic week for tournaments. So for me, I'm going to be paying down here. As I mentioned, I do like those stud running backs. But again, leave in the comments section the wide receiver you think is going to score the most fantasy points with your FantasyCruncher username. I'll draw the winner for a free week of FantasyCruncher Pro during the next week's quarterback video, week 16. Can you believe it? Next week is week 16. Until then, guys, check out all the other great videos we have on the FantasyCruncher YouTube page, and we'll see you next time.